welcome to Donu'S Week, which is about what I've been up to for the past 7 days, the people I've interacted with, the places I've been to, the things I've done and not done, and the thoughts I've had. Thank God it's Friday. So let me tell you what I've been up to for the past 7 days. Well, those of you who are regular viewers of this channel will know that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes about 3 months ago. And after a bit of panicking and doing nothing about it, I suddenly decided, I should say decided, on May the 13th to completely cut sugar out of my life. So I used to eat 1 bag of eclairs, chocolate eclairs every day, gone. I used to eat 2 slices of cheesecake every day, gone. I used to have 2 or 3 sugars in every cup of coffee or tea, and at least 5 or 6 cups of coffee and tea every day, gone. I was addicted to Coca-Cola and Sprite, all these sugary fizzy drinks, and not the calorie-free versions either, gone. So on May the 13th, I also decided to minimize my consumption of carbohydrates like white rice, yam, potatoes, pasta. So my doctor had told me that that diabetes can be reversed. So that was my aim, is to get out of the danger zone ASAP. And it looks as if I've almost done it, because this week I had a medical checkup and I'm told the results were excellent, very encouraging, and that I should keep going, but that I seem to have turned a corner. And I wouldn't say I'm not diabetic anymore, but I'd say that I am a long way towards reversing it. So, yippee. Right, so let me move on to a low light of the week, which was that I had to go to my hometown, Port Harcourt, which is on the southern coast of Nigeria. I live in Abuja, so those of you who are new to this channel, I live in Abuja, but I come from Port Harcourt, and I had to go to Port Harcourt on Tuesday. And when I arrived at Port Harcourt Airport, I was filled with rage, because on March the 18th, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Port Harcourt, which is part of Rivers State. And I just felt so angry at the thought of what the indignities that Rivers people have been subjected to for the past few weeks, including the imposition of a very corrupt sole administrator who has no business being there because he's a soldier. So basically, we're under military rule in Rivers State. Emergency rule, military rule, martial law, call it what you will. It's very unfair, and I'm very, very upset about it. But I decided that if I was going to spend my whole time in Port Harcourt being annoyed, I was going to give myself, hypertension. And so I calmed down, and it was nice to see people I hadn't seen for a while. And I'll talk more about Port Harcourt, my trip to Port Harcourt, later. Let me just now move on to a highlight of the week, which is that my beautiful young cousin, Chinwe Lillian Managu, my first cousin's daughter. My first cousin is called Tony Managu, and his daughter was called to the Nigerian bar and is now a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. And she's very enterprising, very smart. She's not just a lawyer, she also designs jewelry. She's also into sort of like all these sort of like new, modern, online businesses. So I know she has a very bright future ahead, and I was delighted to welcome her, her parents, and her 2 brothers to lunch in my house
and we celebrated a little bit and talked about the state of the world. It was so nice to see Tony and his family. You know, families don't see enough of each other in today's world. Everybody's so busy. People live in different cities. And, you know, Tony is my first cousin. Our mothers were sisters. So we ought to be a lot more together than we are. But physically, it has been difficult. And so I was really, really happy for this opportunity to celebrate his daughter's success, as well as to catch up with him and his wife and his sons. Okay, now for the section called Food for Thought, which we try to do every week. And, you know, try and come up with something that provokes thought and makes us think deeply and maybe learn something about life. I actually went to Port Harcourt for the opening of a kind of like a small hotel. The hotel is actually my former family home, my parents' home, and I've rented it out to a very nice young man from my Ogoni tribe called Salvation Moses. And, you know, it was very symbolic for me because my father was a big man in Ogoni land, my late father, very much respected and revered by most of our members of our ethnic group, including Salvation. And I rented, nobody was going there. My siblings and myself, we don't live in Port Harcourt. We don't do any work there. And so we rented this place out to Salvation. And it means a lot to him. My father called it Hill House, and Salvation has kept the name. And he's turned it into a sort of like small boutique hotel type of thing. And he launched it. It was officially opened on Wednesday. And that's what I went to Port Harcourt for. And Senator Magnus Abbey, who's like a brother to me and Salvation, came along with another brother called Mene Kadilo Kabari, who's a traditional ruler from our area. And Magnus and I cut the ribbon together, and there were musicians and there were comedians. It was a really nice evening, and proud to have handed my family my family jewel, if you like, because it's a lovely house. Proud to hand it over to another Ogoni man, and I know my father will be very happy about that. And Salvation has very good taste. He's done a good job. Of course, nobody had lived in the house for years, so it had to be renovated. Great job. Very pleased with what I saw. My cousins, Lacey and Casey, also came to the opening. And, you know, we're normally very snooty, very fussy, very critical. And we couldn't find anything to complain about. Salvation has done such a good job that we actually were happy. And we were just happy with the status quo. Okay, so congratulations to Salvation. You're a fine young man. I'm sure Daddy is smiling down on you from heaven. And I hope that your hotel is a great success. And now for the part that's particularly important to me. I was dragged out of that house in 2015 by hoodlums. I was kidnapped. And if you want to know more about my kidnapping, go back to the beginning of Donu'S world, around the beginning, you know, in early 2024, and you'll see that one of the, or two of the videos were dedicated to the story of my kidnapping. Anyway, I was kidnapped and dragged out of my bedroom in that house. And I never recovered from the experience. I've not been able to sleep in my family home since that experience. And so whenever I go to Port Harcourt, I stay with friends or I stay in a hotel. And Salvation said to me, look, you've got to spend the night. And I insisted, when you have attended the opening and cut the ribbon, we spend the night. So I said, oh, no, 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 I'll be fine. I'll come to the ceremony and then I'll go and stay with my friend. And he said, no, I'm reserving a room for you. Anyway, long story short, my cousin Lacey kindly stayed with me, and I agreed to spend the night there. And I must say, I had moments when I woke up in the middle of the night, but somehow I got through it without having a panic attack. And so after 10 years, I've broken the phobia, I've broken the jinx, I've broken the neurosis. So my rather long-winded food for thought for this week, or thought for the day, is do not let fear control your life. For 10 years, I've avoided a beautiful home that belongs to me and wasted thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on hotel accommodation in my hometown, Port Harcourt, because I developed this phobia about that particular location because I had a traumatic experience in it. And I want to advise everybody who's as sort of weak or crazy as I am, don't make the mistake I made. If you have a fear, confront it. Don't run away. Don't create this mountain that becomes impossible to climb. Many people have been kidnapped in Port Harcourt and other places in Nigeria and the world, and they've gone back to their family homes. And I don't know if they've overcome the phobia, but they've been able to live with it. And so that's, what I want to say is that tell me if you have any fears that have held you back or cost you money or cost you pain. And I'd love to hear. And if you do, I'd love to know that you're planning to confront that phobia and leave it behind. Have therapy if you need to, because I did have therapy, but not for long enough. And so that's all I have to say this week. Thank you for listening.